Good morning. Thank you, Mark. It's indeed my pleasure to be with you this morning. And I'm also happy to see that most of the audience are students. That brings me back to my original profession. I'm a professor in nature at King Saud University in Riyadh, in the university and the College of Administrative Sciences. So the students are the most deep-hearted part to me than any other things, because they are the ones who are inquisitive, and they really have an urge to learn and to get the right knowledge. I was informed about this lecture just short time, so we made it as brief as possible about the perspective in Saudi Arabia. Before I start, I would like to thank the organizers for organizing this wonderful event. And I'm speaking on the behalf of my embassy, the Embassy of Saudi Arabia, and in particular, His Excellency Dr. Shabukshi, who was not able to come today. What I'm doing in this talk is I'm giving a brief speech about the economy in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, as we know, is the largest economy in the MENA region, with a GDP of 780 billion Saudi riyals. So it is considered the biggest and the largest in the Middle East and in the Arab world. It has a per capita income of $27,000. That's for each individual. Saudi Arabia, as Mark said, is interesting in having people living in Saudi Arabia with hundreds of nationalities. The expatriates living in Saudi Arabia is 8.5 million out of the population of 27 million. So it is common to see in the street when you are in Riyadh or in Jeddah or in Mecca, people from all over the world, Americans, British, English, Indians, Pakistani, Arabs. And it is important, because this will be in the last section of the lecture that I'm speaking. It holds the two holiest places for all Muslims. Muslims is almost 1 billion and two people all over the world. It's in this land, it has the two most holiest places in Saudi Arabia, where is influx of millions of Muslims come every year. So this is a magnificent example of cultural diplomacy, where the people really have this great interact with each other, with the languages, the culture, the belief system, the values, the religious, so it's a really magnificent example of that. Somebody can say that Saudi Arabia has a strong economy. This economy has overspilled to other countries nearby, especially the Arab world, in the form of loans, assistance, participation of projects, helping the have-nots, helping the poor, because of the Arab world also has this, visible different living standards. For example, Saudi Arabia and Yemen, or with all respect of the countries, this is nature of the economy. But Saudi Arabia has this very strong role in really helping out others who are in need, as far as in developmental projects, through our channels of development banks and development funds. Saudi Arabia the economy is based on government spending. It is public-based economy, where it has heavy influence on the public spending. We all know that it is revolved around oil production. Saudi Arabia has the highest production almost in the world, with 9.7 million barrels per day. So it's a dominant in this sector, and the oil is owned by the government. So we look at when the government is the dominant force in the economy in the form of its expenditure. So we have, for example, this year of 2015, the largest budget, the government budget in the history of the Saudi Arabia, although the prices of oil has fallen just for the past 6 months from $120 to $60. So it is a signal by the political elite and by the government that injecting the economy is of paramount importance to the government by continuing the influx of finances into the economy. And this can be seen that somebody would think that the expenditure would have reduced as long as the prices of oil has gone down, but the contrary has happened. The expenditure in the form of government budget has increased while the prices of oil has declined. Also, maybe it's important to mention that Saudi Arabia has accumulated handsome amount of reserves. For the past 10 years, the prices of oil we know has been gone in a price that is very good for Saudi Arabia, given the fact that the cost of production is low. It's probably the lowest in all producing countries. So there is a margin, big margin of reserves can be accumulated with the amount of $750 billion. So this would not even, the shortage of oil would not have an impact. It will have an impact, but it would not have a strong impact on the economy. So the point that I'm trying to stress, we are dealing with a very big economy, the biggest in the region, the largest in the MENA as far as gross national product, as far as job creation, as far as world impact, is the 19th strongest economy in the world. Oh, sorry. Okay. This was the government expenditure I was referring to earlier on. So, oil and economy in Saudi Arabia are inseparable. As we said, we have the largest oil reserve, constituting to 25% of world reserve oil. That can attest to the really essential element in the economy, not only in the regional but in the whole world. Yesterday we had the nice presence of our Minister of Petroleum, and he had given a speech at the Institute of Security here in Berlin, with also His Excellency the Minister of Energy, the German Ministry of Energy, and the discussion was along the oil and the prices of oil, the production, how will it be, and Saudi Arabia has been in the news for the past 6 months with regard to this issue. It has been criticized by some by not interfering into the production, the supply side, the production of oil. Some people, some countries maybe are more reliant also on oil, and they have felt the heat for really losing a great amount of money for this plunging of prices from 120 to 60s. And Saudi Arabia, as we know, it's been what you call the swing producers. That's in the production side, when the production of oil is less, so it has the capacity to increase its production of oil from 9, that's the current level, 9.7 million barrels per day to 13 million barrels per day. So it's a resilient economy with regard to production of oil. So what Saudi Arabia did, it really did not interfere at this point, because it let the power of the economy to work, supply and demand. We had interfered before, if you remember, on this issue in 2000, in the 80s, where we have reduced the production of oil, and some other non-OPEC members have supplied the needed demand, and the price have plummeted to $8. So we lost on the production side, the volume, and we lost on the price. So at this time, said, let the market play its role with this supply and demand mechanism. And we should know now it has stabilized. We don't know if it has reached the bottom. The bottom was like about 48. Now it's in the level of 60. So I think this policy this course of action that has been handled by Saudi Arabia is really getting now the respect, because it's a sound policy, that it is a commodity that's sold in the market that should be treated as such. And the producers who have less efficiency, they will be the one who really will have an effect on that. So, as I said, again here, the drop in oil prices did not really have an impact on the production side, because the current production level continue to be the same of 9.7 for 2014 and also 2015. Then we move to the other slide when we talk about foreign investment in Saudi Arabia. Why people should invest in Saudi Arabia? It means like not individuals, we're talking about countries, we're talking about funds, we're talking about international organizations. Why is it a place for investment? We look at Saudi Arabia that there is the direct foreign investment in Saudi Arabia constitute about $28 billion. That's a large amount of money. Saudi Arabia has created an agency called SAGIA, Saudi Arabia General Investment Authority, to facilitate this function, to facilitate the attraction of international investment to come in Saudi Arabia. Some I already have mentioned earlier. They invest in Saudi Arabia because it's the largest economy in the region. It has the quarter of the world proven reserve of oil. It has one of the highest economic growth of 6%. So when it comes to investor, they know they are investing in a very sound and safe economy, because investors also look out for reasons to invest. So nowadays, Saudi Arabia has the largest foreign investments in the whole Middle East and the Arab region. Not only that, but there are good infrastructure projects that facilitate to this endeavor. If we look at the ports, the airports are world-class in Saudi Arabia, and also in the regions, like in the United Arab Emirates, in Kuwait and Qatar, and because it's all one region, it's really connected to each other. And there is a massive investment on these infrastructure. There is about 30 billion will be for 5 years to come. There will be investment on ports, and about 300 billion to airports. Electricity also is objected. Our electricity is also an area that has a focus for investment in Saudi Arabia, with an amount of 280 billion for the coming 5 years. Given these factors in the economy, there are purposeful regulations have been conducted by Saudi government, by Saudi agency to facilitate this investment. If we look at, for example, the Saudi customs, there are exemptions for investors. This is the one why invest in Saudi Arabia, and this is for elements to facilitate investors. For the customs, for example, for international organization, international companies, when they come to invest, not only they are having this strong economy, but also the milieu of investment, the milieu of really fostering this investment have been put in force in the form of exemption for customs, where there is less tariffs or no tariffs for the raw materials, for the machinery that the company will produce. Not only that, but the government of Saudi Arabia and the Ministry of Finance provide loans for some investments that are needed in the economy. Let it be Saudi investors or international investors. Up to 200 Saudi riyals for educational projects and 150 for health project, because there is need to involve the private sector on education and health. Maybe now, to just not to bore you with this information, to give you some small video about an example of our industrial city, that Yanbu, to also to give you some feel of how the engine of the economy is going and how the working is going. So I'll just move this until the... Okay. Can we turn the lights? Sort the volume?
Cities contribute 9.6% to the gross domestic product.
Hello. Okay.
The Royal Commission's industrial cities of Jubail and
Raja?
Yanbu. The Royal Commission's industrial cities of Jubail and Yanbu account for 60% of total exports from the kingdom and 65% of the total industrial investment for the whole of the GCC. Royal Commission cities contribute 9.6% to the gross domestic product of the country and produce over 10% of the world's petrochemicals. Yanbu is a worldwide benchmark for highly developed industrial cities. It's the third largest global refining hub and the largest industrial city on the Red Sea. Yanbu hosts numerous hydrocarbon, petrochemical, and mineral industries, as well as light manufacturing and support industries. Several more plants are in various stages of planning and construction. Yanbu Industrial City boasts state-of-the-art infrastructure. 3 power plants provide a stable and reliable energy source for current industry and future expansions. Utility supply will double in the next few years with the addition of seawater cooling, power, and desalination plants. Yanbu Industrial City is situated midway between the Americas and the countries of the Pacific Ocean. Major shipping lanes connected to the Suez Canal, European markets, and developing markets in Africa and Middle East. Yanbu is serviced by King Fahad Industrial Port, the largest crude oil export facility on the Red Sea and the 7th biggest in the world for liquid material exports. Additional expansion of the port and setup of a multimodal hub is coming soon. A regional airport links Yanbu to the rest of the world. Several airliners are operating to key destinations. A modern highway provides connectivity, and a railway line will soon be added. Industries enjoy immediate access to crude oil and natural gas via cross-kingdom pipelines. Yanbu offers an outstanding quality of life on the shores of the beautiful Red Sea. As a full-service city, Yanbu has world-class medical clinics and hospitals. The city offers beautifully landscaped residential areas and recreational facilities for families. The development of an 11-kilometer-long waterfront ushers Yanbu into the future. It is planned to provide residents with many modern amenities, parks, and mangroves. Various social events at the city level are offered throughout the year. Yanbu's educational system includes schools, colleges, and universities of international standards. A regulating and monitoring system is in place to conserve the wildlife and natural ecosystem to protect the natural environment. With the addition of 420 square kilometers in Phase 2, Yanbu Industrial City will become the largest concentrated industrial location in the world and almost the size of Singapore. A varied portfolio of clients in diversified industries are accommodated in clusters such as automotive, desalination, minerals, sustainable energy, and petrochemical. These plants create products that become raw materials for downstream manufacturing enterprises. One of the most anticipated projects is the establishment of Yanbu's AutoZone. An international automaker has signed an agreement to manufacture 50,000 vehicles per year and create over 4,500 jobs. Current talks with other auto OEMs will see employment numbers increase 4 times in the coming years. The city is positioned to be the leader in renewable energy in the kingdom. Its first polysilicon plant is being designed to manufacture photovoltaic components in the solar park. Yanbu will be the regional center for the desalination industry. Working with several major corporate partners, expansion is underway in desalination supply chain industries. A large mineral processing center will be created to exploit the large deposits of minerals close to Yanbu, including iron ore, phosphate, gypsum, and copper. Despite the economic challenges of the last decade, Yanbu continued to see dramatic growth. This is a testament to the stability of the kingdom's economy and attractive business environment provided by the Royal Commission to the investors.
Okay. This is, as I said, just an example of one of the industrial cities in Saudi Arabia. We have Jubail and Yanbu, we have city, industrial city, 5 major industrial. This particular city, as I said, is the size of Singapore. These are, as I said, the plan for the governments to encourage industry, to encourage the improvement of the economy, foreign investment, and others. Huh? Okay. I think we have emphasized the importance of oil in Saudi Arabia, and we have said it is based on, it's an economy based on oil, which is natural. We're blessed by that, and we have not only we're not only exporting it, but now, for the past 10 years, we are using the oil for major industry, for the petrochemicals. We have, the government has created several world-leading companies like SABIC for getting the oil and the derivatives of oil into other industries like petrochemicals, methylene, ethylene, and others. Non-oil foreign trade is also a major component in the Saudi economy. Exports for other parts that are not economy constitute about 17 billion Saudi riyal annually. We have a strong trade with the neighboring countries like UAE as the first one, that we are exporting rubbers, chemical products, and ordinary metals. We also import to, as I said, the neighboring country, the Arab countries, and to the countries in the region. Other imports, we import about 50.8 billion. We have our partners, mainly China, 15%, and Germany, for example, we have a balance of trade of $11 billion that we import from them, machinery and other products and equipment. Unemployment is part of the economy when we talk about like the engine of the economy who runs is like the manpower, the employees, the workers. It's also important. When you look at the economy, you have to have discussion of unemployment. It is interesting to note that Saudi Arabia, as I have mentioned, has 8.7 expatriates. Those are international workers. Those 8.7 expatriates that are not Saudi, but they are working in the economy. However, we have unemployment for the Saudi young force of about 5.9 unemployment rate, which is reasonable, or like this is like the common rate for all other countries. However, the unemployment rate for female workforce is significantly higher than the male force of 32%, whereas it's 11.7% for the male, constituting to 5.9. But somebody should ask, why do we have unemployment, whereas 8.7 million expatriates? Those are international workforce working in the economy. The answer is clear. Most of those workers have been categorized by either they are highly skilled labor that the local economy or the local workforce cannot really produce them, and they are highly needed. But those do not really constitute a large percentage, say 2%, like the engineers, the mechanical engineers, the scientists, and others. And usually they are coming from other countries, whereas the bulk of the expatriates' employment, for we call it the blue-collar workers, for doing the small jobs that the nationals tend to shy away from, and it's really making the government is making important initiatives for reculturalization of the works and making values, to changing value system, to encourage young Saudis to take on these jobs. One important element for really upgrading the skills of our workforce, as we call it, King Abdullah Program for Scholarship. This is a scholarship program, is the largest scholarship program almost in the world. When we're talking about figurative numbers, there are 150,000 young Saudi students studying abroad for the purpose of improving their skills, their knowledge, in order when they finish from studying abroad I mean in the best universities, not only in America or Europe, but also in Japan, South Korea, and India, and other countries, and the best country, they go back and participate heavily on this development. So we're trying to have this element of solving an employment issue with upgrading the skills and knowledge of those workers, and also in the policy of what you call it Saudization, and where we try as much as possible to have the Saudi young workforce to take the position that are taken by the expatriates, by giving some incentives through for the companies that the government will pay maybe half of their job in order to train them and to get them in the right position. Then we will shift to Michael's best subject, which is cultural diplomacy. Which we're talking about a good example, cultural diplomacy in Saudi Arabia, which is religious tourism or Hajj tourism. As I have mentioned, Saudi Arabia is blessed to have the two holiest mosques for all Muslims, two holiest sites for all Muslims. That's Mecca and Medina. Mecca is where the Al-Kaaba is, and Al-Medina is where it's like the masjid or the mosque of the Prophet Muhammad. So all Muslims all over the world have all dreamed to come to perform the Hajj, which is once a year. But it cannot happen because the limitation is there. There is only, the place is limited for 2 million a year. We're talking about a small place, like maybe 1/4 of or less even, maybe 1/5 of Berlin size. This is, they have to be at certain time, at certain point. So you cannot expand it more than that. Otherwise, it will be, what do you call it, a crowded management miracle to organize all these number of people. But Saudi Arabia has done a massive projects to improve and to accommodate this demand for coming to Hajj and Umrah. As I said, the current level of pilgrimage they do for Hajj is 2 million. It is expected with the massive projects to expand to expand the ability to hold more pilgrimage to 5 million for the Hajj and to 10 million for 2025. Some projects for expanding the Hajj is this is the historic expansion ever in the history of Saudi Arabia, to expand Al-Haram. It's the largest ever in history, to expand it to twice of the size. The second one is for Al-Shamiyah, that's outside the Haram, also to expand for prayers to come on it. This is another mountain near Al-Haram to demolish it and build also, because those pilgrimages need housing, need hotels, need places to sit. So you have to build up these facilities. King Abdulaziz Road, Jabal Omar. These are, before 5 years there is nothing. They're just mountains. So those people have to sit. They have to have places to live. They have to have places to stay, hotels and food and restaurants. These are, we're talking about 5 years ago, there was nothing. This is Braj al-Bayt and Jabal Khundama and Haram expansion. Okay, Al-Madinah also another site, because throughout the year about 10 million coming and going for a visit. There are other expansion also as well has been conducted to accommodate all these people coming to Medina al-Munawwara, where it is, what do you call it, the mosque of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. There are other projects coming to expand the demand. Pilgrimage city and Haramain high-speed rail, where it connects the pilgrimage from Mecca and Medina and to Jeddah, and to expand Jeddah airport to accommodate 50 million passengers. At this point, I think we have come to the conclusion of my presentation. We have touched upon the economy, the cultural diplomacy in Saudi Arabia. Thank you very much for your listening, and I hope you enjoyed the talk.
Open the floor to a few questions. We are running a little bit behind schedule, so perhaps two, maybe? Yeah, you have one? So, one at the front and sorry.
Okay. Thank you so much for your presentation. I am Dr. Noor Fatma from Islamabad, Pakistan. I was looking at your presentation and the employment and unemployment rate. I'm more concerned about the higher education system in Saudi Arabia, because when you don't have the capacity or the trained professionals, how are you going to manage your higher education in Saudi Arabia?
Thank you. Good question. As I said, higher education, we have expanded greatly in the number of universities. It has expanded from 8 to 28 for the past 5 years. And we tend to invite foreign professors from the Arab world, from the Islamic world, and from Europe to come and participate in the teaching of our hospitals. We have an example of KAUST. If you heard of it, it's one of the world-class university. Most of our teachers in KAUST are Germans, Americans, Indians, Pakistani, the brilliant, the brain of the brain. They are really, it's a research university that is, it's in Saudi Arabia, but it's for the objective of really generating knowledge for all.
I only would like to know if the regional instability is affecting your economy, or everything is fine. And I'm talking about Syria, Yemen, and also in the previous years, the situation in Bahrain. So is there any effect of the political instability of the region or not?
Yes.
Thank you.
Of course, of course. It's a good question. Political stability is important for investors. Saudi Arabia has become a main force in really stabilizing the region. There is so many issues, or so many in the internal battles or the civil wars around, and the clashes has affected the region indeed. But when you go to Saudi Arabia, you see a lot of it in the media, by the way. But when you go in Saudi Arabia, you get shocked that everything is okay, or like even me, I was like, when you see so much news and in the TV and CNN, and it was like the whole region is in flame. But once you go there, it's like it's calm and peaceful. But to answer your question, of course, nobody can say it doesn't have effect. Of course, it has an effect. But you have to also to look for the moderate Arab regions like Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, Morocco are really trying to build a league to the Kuwait, UAE, Qatar, to really to politicize this issue and to bring harmony back to the region. We know that's happened from the Arab Springs, but I think it's natural. It's just throughout history where there is ups and downs, but let's hope stability will come soon.
Thank you so much for that. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for. We have to keep it brief for respect of the next speakers. But Dr. Abdulrahman Alhumedhi, I want to say thanks again for a really brilliant speech. It was lovely to have you here with us today at the Institute for Cultural Diplomacy. Thank you.